We are tonight having a special called public hearing of the mayor and council for the city of Snellville, Georgia, Monday, February 10th, 2025. So I will call that meeting to order. The only item on this agenda is to talk about the city's possible either opting in or opting out of the statewide adjusted base year ad valorem homestead exemption for the city of Snellville. Did anybody understand what any of those words meant? Yep. No, I know. It's very confusing. So we refer to this as House Bill 581, and it's about the property tax exemption that you all, if you went out to vote in November, you may have voted on that referendum. To what the referendum does, and let me stop a minute. We've been running from meeting to meeting to meeting the last hour or so, so a little discombobulated here. So let me stop and start over again. What we'll do tonight at the public hearing is I will run through a short presentation just to explain what this bill does, what your vote did in November, and what the chain of events the acceptance or the vote for that ballot amendment, what it set off. And what we're going to talk about a little bit about what impact that has on a homeowner, and then what impact that we project for this to have on the city and the budget going forward, okay? After that short presentation, then we'll open the floor to public comment. What we're really after is what your views are. Our decision that we're faced with, right now our deadline for making this decision is March the 1st. The state legislature is talking about extending that to May 1st to allow a little bit potentially of tweaking of the bill because some issues with the bill are coming to light through the legislative process now. So, and I want to set the stage as well that the city has not decided to opt in or to opt out. There may be stuff going around on social media that we're opting out and we're causing you more tax money. That's not the truth. The truth is we haven't decided. The reason why we're having the public hearings, which were required if you were considering opting out, is that we had a date that in order to do the advertising for the public hearings, we had to make a decision by the end of December. We didn't have a meeting at the end of December. Of course, everybody's tied up in the holidays and a lot of other things going on. We didn't have enough time to really see what effect this might have on the city. But if we missed those advertising dates, we couldn't have the public hearings, and then we had no opportunity to opt out, even if we knew that wound up being the best choice. So we decided to go ahead and advertise the public hearings, and then we're still undecided, and this is our third hearing now, and we really want some feedback from all of you. So I would ask that that we talk about this in respectful tones, that we haven't made decisions, so please just let us know how you feel about it. And then we'll take those thoughts and feelings into consideration. So let's start with the presentation, and let's talk about what House Bill 581 did. The first thing was it put a ballot amendment, or a referendum, I should say, on the ballot in November. And that ballot, Brian, you could go to the next slide. That ballot was passed by the voters in the state of Georgia. It passed in our area at least by about a 60 to 65% majority voted on this. We're very mindful of that. We've been accused of ignoring the public in your vote. And no, we're very mindful that over 60% of the people have voted to put this into place, okay? What this legislation required was the statewide referendum that was voted on in November. And what it does is it enacts a floating homestead exemption. And so what that's for people who own their home and live in their home. So it's owner-occupied housing, okay? You all, maybe you remember, if you've been in your house, you might have forgotten if you've been in there a long time, but when you first bought the house, your realtor told you, make sure you go to the county and get your homestead exemption, right? I'm seeing some heads nod. Y'all remember that? Go get your homestead exemption, otherwise your property taxes are going to be really high. So the homestead exemption reduces your value on your home by a certain amount, whatever that exemption amount is granted for the county. And so it reduces the valuation of your house, so it reduces your property taxes. It's supposed to be that only owner-occupied housing gets that exemption. Okay, so if a landlord or another entity owns a house and they're renting it out, they don't get that homestead exemption. Commercial properties do not get that homestead exemption. So it's a mechanism to allow for actual citizens, property owners here in the city, get a little savings on their tax bill, okay? What this House bill did, well, wait, let me back up just a second. The way the valuations happen is every so often the county comes through and reassesses the value of your homes, okay? And typically, not always, but typically the county does that every 3 years. So your home might get an increase in the valuation in 1 year, and then it'll be the same for a couple of years, and then it'll go up again, and then it'll go up again. And but what we've seen with the housing market over time and with the delay that they have in assessing property values over time, sometimes those jumps are pretty substantial. I know this past year, my house went up over $100,000 in 1 year. So that's a pretty substantial increase. Can't say that it's not justified. We had houses selling in my neighborhood for unbelievable prices. I mean, you all know what happened in the housing market in 2022. So when those property values go up like that, even when we keep our millage rate the same, which we have had for the past several years, your property tax would still go up, right? Because your house value went up. But anyone who didn't have an increase in their house valuation, your property tax stayed the same, okay? So what this bill does, is it says that your home value can only go up by a certain percentage every year. The amount that it can go up is capped by the rate of inflation that's determined by the Georgia Department of Revenue yearly, okay? So that could be 2%, it could be 5%. You know, the last couple of years we've had 9% inflation, so it could go up 9%. But it sets that cap to where we won't see a $100,000 property tax value go up, you know, by that much at one fell swoop. But it would then go up every year by the rate of inflation, okay? So the overall goal of this bill was for owner-occupied housing was to lower the amounts of the valuation on the house, to suppress it so that you don't get priced out of your homes with property taxes, okay? So this is all a good thing for owner-occupied housing. Absolutely a great thing when you're looking at it from the homeowner's perspective. The only time that house value would reset is if the house was sold and then it gets set at the new value, the sales price for the new homeowner, and then it would go up by the inflation rate, or if an existing homeowner made significant improvements to the home. And I don't know what triggers that. Somebody here might. So that could also trigger a revaluation of your house outside of the normal realm. Brian, going on the next one. So what we did, the challenge this creates from the city perspective is that we have not changed our millage rate in 6 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's been more than 3. I think we've been at the same millage rate for 4 years. This is the 4th year. This is the 4th year of our millage rate staying at 4 mills, okay? So we have not raised our millage rate at all, but our property tax values have gone up, so we do get additional property tax revenue from those increases, okay? So we've been able to hold the millage rate knowing that property values go up. Now, property values go up from current existing properties being reassessed, but also new properties being developed. So like when we had some of the building here in the down center, that increased the valuation of the properties, but that was new build or new or reconstruction, okay? So we would typically see an increase in property tax collections just based on that increase in valuation, okay, from existing properties. That won't happen to the same extent that we've had in the past if we opt in and say that we're going to agree to this cap on our property tax values, okay? So what we have to do as the council and the keeping the budget is we've got to figure out what's the impact to the city going forward, okay? And how will we work to work on our, how will we make our budget work if we're not getting those kinds of increases in our property taxes over the year? Go on, Brian. So we did a little figuring here. And some of this is, we actually went back and looked at the difference in the taxable values, and this is on the city as a whole. Okay, so this isn't talking about one individual home. This is the city as a whole. And Matt, you're right, 4.0. So you'll see, if you look at the difference in taxable value in 2021, the increase in the taxable value went up by $10 million. Okay, these numbers are in the millions. 2022, the cumulative effect was $80 million. Then 2023, $128 million, $136 million. If we then cap those valuations going forward, you can see the reduction that we would expect, or the reduction or not seeing the growth in those taxes by that bottom line there. Those negative numbers is cumulative effect on the city going out 5 years, okay? So what we'd be looking for or looking at is each year a little bit larger number of revenues that we wouldn't have to help balance the budget to deliver the services that you all are used to receiving, okay? The next one, Brian. And this just gives that to you a little bit more graphical. The blue is the way property values went up, okay, over those past years. The brown would be the values with this House bill in place, okay? So you'll see it's a much lower curve going up. And what that means for the city perspective is less revenue coming in, okay? Next. Now you can skip through that one, Brian. All right, so we did this just to give you some numbers on an individual house, okay? So that this, it's hard when we're talking millions of dollars and all these general numbers. It's much easier to see your impact on you personally. So if we started with a home that was valued at $300,000 total value, then the way the county taxes are, the county takes 40% of that value, and that's what the taxes are figured on, okay? So you'll see in the top section is with the currently the way properties get valued now. And this is an actual house that we took through the past 5 years. Okay, so you'll see in 2021, the property taxes on this house were $525. And in 2024, it was $689. Okay, so you can see the difference of how this house value went up, or the property taxes went up. If you look at it with the capped 3% inflation rate, you started at the 525, but you only went to no, how did that go down? Am I looking at this wrong?
That went down because that was the year we changed the millage from 4.558 to 4.
Ah, okay. So the property tax went down. But you'll see the difference then is $183 over that 4-year period. Okay? So we're not talking thousands of dollars, we're talking hundreds of dollars, which is meaningful, I know, for a lot of people. But I think it's just helpful to see this in, more real dollars on what it will do to your pocketbook. Okay, and then what do we have next there, Brian? Okay, this was the process. Okay, so with that as a little bit of a basis and some information for you on how this bill works, when that referendum was voted on in November, that just started the process, okay? That vote gave us then the go-ahead and the instructions to say, okay, now you need to look and see whether we need to opt in and go with the 3%, or I shouldn't say 3%, the cost of living increase on your property values, or the city has the opportunity to opt out, not participate in that program, and things would just continue on the way they have, okay? The decision that we make under the current law is final. So once we opt in, the city is forever bound by that cap on the property tax values, okay? So this isn't something like we can try it for a couple of years, see how it's working, see if we can balance our budget, and then we could change our minds later. It doesn't work that way. The law also allowed for an opportunity for the jurisdiction to pass a local option sales tax that sales tax would be generated, and of course sales taxes are taxed on everyone that buys anything here in the jurisdiction. So it's not just property owners, so it generates a lot more revenue and not always from just the people here. So a lot of people prefer a sales tax. So it did give the opportunity to pass a sales tax that would then be used to offset the decrease in revenue that the city would calculate, okay? The issue with that is that the law required that any jurisdiction within a county, if any one city or county opted out, then no one could have the sales tax, okay? We already know that there's several cities that are opting out, and we know that Gwinnett County is leaning towards opting out because they already have a value offset exemption that they feel like is better than what the state law provides, okay? And that's fine too. But with several cities opting out, Gwinnett's got now 17 cities, so if one of them opts out, then no one can vote for the sales tax. And we wouldn't be able to vote for the sales tax individually as the city of Snellville. The referendum has to come from the county. And if the county opts out, then obviously we couldn't do a sales tax vote. So the sales tax vote is off the table for the city and the county. As I said before, we have to decide under the current law by March 1st. There are some things kicking around in the legislature because it sounds like quite a few jurisdictions, Mary Pro Tem Warner can probably speak to this a little bit better, but there's a lot of jurisdictions across the state that are planning to opt out. So I think the legislature's going back to take a look at, just see what they passed and why is everybody opting out. Part of the issue with this is it's going to make planning a little more difficult with the city budget. It makes things a little more confusing from that perspective, but that's not really y'all's issue so much. But I think in the end too, it would mean that the city would just wind up having to raise millage rates if that deficit in the funding became so extreme that we couldn't balance the budget, because we do a lot with our property taxes. So I'm going to leave that. Is there anything that I missed that we should talk about? Keep it short so that we can allow people to
Keep it short.
talk.
Okay. The Gwinnett County has a value offset, or what they basically have a freeze on homestead property values. Did staff get in touch with the Gwinnett County Tax Commissioner to find out how that passes through to us as a city with our valuation, since we are a police city?
It should just apply to the county taxes, not to city taxes.
In a presentation by Gwinnett County Commissioner, he was showing that the city of Swanee or Sugar Hill, one or the other, which neither have, the value offset exemption is passed through directly to the city. So I just wanted to check to see whether we already have that in place, because not sure. The things that come up is this puts a burden on the school system, because the school system, and that's not really your concern tonight, it's not our concern, but the greatest increase we've had in our property taxes, or our property tax bills, is through what we're charged for Gwinnett County schools. On your tax bill, you pay Gwinnett County taxes, and then for all the services that the city provides, police, public works, planning and development, code enforcement, all the various services, those are deducted off of the Gwinnett County tax bill, and then the city bills for those services separately. One of the big issues that has come up in discussing this with the state legislature is, this is great for those of us who are going to live here a long time. First of all, it's going to start from this year. That'll be where your value's frozen, not where you bought your house. If you're like me and you often buy houses at a steep discount, you'll be great going forward. But as we do move forward, anybody who lives in a rental property, any business that owns commercial property, they will see their valuations continue to go up. And because of the freeze on residential homestead exempt property, it will definitely, whether it's county, whether it's city, will require tax increases going forward in the future. We fight those tooth and nail, but it will happen. And as that happens, the people who are not fortunate enough to own their own home are going to be paying more and more, because whether you know it or not, renters end up paying for those property taxes, because landlords will pass that cost along. Also, as the business owners pay the increased tax, we will all bear that burden, because again, whatever it costs the business to keep his doors open gets passed along to us eventually. They don't work as a charity, so those costs will continue to be borne by us. So it sounds like a great idea. The only other thing that has come up is homestead exemptions are done on a county by county basis. We've got 159 counties in the state of Georgia. So we have a lot of residents that used to live here in the city of Snellville. And when they moved out of the county and bought a house in Walton, Barrow, wherever they went, if they turned their house into a rental here, gosh, it still has homestead exemption, because there's no way to pick up on that. And I've checked on a few of them that I personally know, and the homestead exemption continues on even as they live in their home with a homestead exemption in Walton, Barrow, Oconee County, whatever. So I've been working with the state legislature to get a statewide system that's based on your driver's license number. So when you go to file homestead exemption in any county, you'll have to put in your driver's license number, and they will check the system, and you will either get it in your new county, but it'll come off wherever you move from. That's it.
Thank you, Todd. All right, so now I will open the floor to public comment. Like I said, we would love to hear your views on it. If you have a, question on anything I've talked about, this is hard stuff, so don't blame me one bit if you're confused about anything. But please come on up and let us know what you think.
Good afternoon. My name is Rochelle Brown. I live at 2225 Wisteria Drive. And I'm here tonight speaking as a proud member of this community, a community that I care deeply about. And I'm here to voice my concerns on the proposed House Bill 581 exemption for Snellville. While I understand this proposal is aimed at offering some relief for homeowners, I would like to highlight the concerns about the long-term impact that it will have on our community, especially for renters, small businesses, and essential public services like our schools and programs for our students. Public services are the backbone of any thriving community, and our police department, sanitation services, and of course our infrastructure all play vital roles in ensuring that Snellville is a safe and livable place for all. If the city's revenue is reduced through this homestead exemption, these services could suffer, and we all will feel it. Let's consider our aging water system and sewage system. Built back in the 1950s and in desperate need of upgrades and required expansion based on population growth. Recently, Mayor Bender spoke at a last meeting explaining that even the sewage rate has increased from $15 to $18. And while that might not seem like it's a lot of money, just like our homes built in the 1950s also require upgrades, so does our city sewage system and our growing population. This increase actually comes out of the budget that we have set aside for these services. And we can all recall the incident in Flint, Michigan, commonly known as the Flint water crisis. This should serve as a caution for all cities. Historically, the city of Flint approved a similar exemption titled the Homeowners Property Tax Exemption, the HOPE program, without considering the broader implications, prioritizing reliable water, safe sanitation, and infrastructure that is essential for safeguarding the health and well-being of all residents. This is not something that can be reversed, and should serve as an example of how adjustments with the budget without thinking of the future can backfire. And it may not happen today, tomorrow, but the people who live in this community and thrive from this community will pay on one way or the other. I want to speak specifically how this would have on renters and small businesses. The proposed tax break may benefit property owners but could harm renters and small businesses. Landlords may raise the rents to compensate for lost income, making housing less affordable in an already high housing market. Small businesses, which are the heart of our community, could also feel the pressure. Higher taxes, whether indirectly or directly, could lead to higher prices, reduced hours, or even layoffs. We want to continue to support the growth of Snellville while we need to ensure that our businesses can thrive and renters can be able to afford to live here. The current rate for the millage is 4 mLs. This is notably lower than the Gwinnett County average of 6.95. Snellville has actively worked on maintaining and managing taxes since 2022, when the previous rate was at 4.588, which means you were paying more money. However, with this potential exemption could lead to the revenue shortage that they speak of, and as a result of this shortfall, the millage rate would have to be inevitably increased. And this would impact homeowners, renters, and small businesses. In an effort to make things more affordable for seniors, there are other programs that you can apply for. As far as the 65 and up full exemption from school taxes. More information on that can also be found at Gwinnett County Tax Assessor's Office. So in conclusion, I just want you guys to consider the Homestead Property Tax, House Bill 581. It's an easy fix for homeowners in the short term. In the long term, you will end up paying more money and the taxes will be higher. But we have to consider the bigger picture. Adopting this bill now will leave us without the resources to maintain essential services, support local businesses, and invest in the future of this city. So I urge you, Mayor and council members, to carefully consider the long-term effects of this proposal. We are a strong, resilient community that supports each other, and we must protect the essential services and the infrastructure that we depend on. This isn't just about homeowners, it's about everyone. It's about small business owners right here in our community. It's about long-term residents, and it's about the renters that, hey, we're here too. We must ensure that Snellville remains a place where we can all thrive together. So let's work together to find a solution that is strong, equitable, and vibrant for all residents. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? I saw a couple of people trying to get up. Come on up to the microphone. If you would, just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Terry Bradley, and I live in Snellville at 3595 Spring Mesa Drive. My only question was, where my confusion comes in is the unincorporated and incorporated portions of Snellville. Is this for everything, or is there a difference?
What we're talking about here is, this is Snellville, the incorporated Snellville, so actually within the city limits of Snellville.
So the unincorporated is not affected?
Unincorporated is Gwinnett County. They're talking about opting out because they feel like their value offset exemption is a better deal than what this state legislation provides.
The opt-out does affect the unincorporated?
Yes.
Okay.
It will for the county, not for what we do here in the city.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So if we want to opt in, what are our choices? We just vote here or no?
No, there's no more voting of the public. That referendum took place in November. So if you want to opt in, then you need to be talking to your county commissioner and your county commission chair, because they're the ones that will make that vote.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Don't be shy. Well, come on up.
Hi. Long time no see.
I know.
You know my position on this, and I'm a homeowner, and I think it's the best thing for homeowners. So I think for the city, most of us voted you guys in to look after the interest. And I thought I voted for this with the rest of the citizens in Georgia, and we all voted for it. So now we're going to have somebody take that vote away and vote some other way? That doesn't sound fair. And for Gwinnett County, I didn't attend their meeting, but if they're worried about money, they should start worrying about their business. They gave an extension to the superintendent in July and fired him in January.
Mr. Thomas, we're not talking about
It's going to cost them
school
about $1
board
million.
or the county.
Okay?
We need to
I just
keep it
want
to
to pass that on.
I understand.
And the cost of business and running a business, well, that's the business owner's problem. And all of it is passed on to the consumer. And I understand that, and I expect if he has to pay more, I'll have to pay more. It's certainly proven true with food prices. You used to could go have lunch for $15, and now it's more like $35. I won't go with that again. But anyway, that's my opinion. I think we look forward for you to make the right decision for us.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Bobby Howard, 2240 Pinehurst Road, Snellville, Georgia. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hope everybody's having a good night. My initial heartburn with this whole legislation is the idea that our legislature had us vote on something and then turned around and served y'all with the opportunity to opt out. Quite frankly, it's no win. You cannot win this, regardless of which way you go. So the rest of my comments are all drafted towards that and go down that runway. The fact that they gave you an untenable situation to live with, and it shouldn't have been done. Can't really re-debate their decision-making, but that's what they've left you with, and it stinks. So I stand before you tonight to urge you not to opt out of HB 581. 63.72% of the people in Snellville and Gwinnett County have already spoken, and they have spoken loudly and by a wide margin. Voters in our city supported this measure. To override their will now would not only be a disservice to our residents, but also act as that it undermines the very foundation of representative government. I know that the city of Grayson and Lawrenceville have opted to stay in on their public Facebook post. When voters go to the polls, they expect their decisions to be honored. They expect their voices to matter. The results of this vote were not close. This wasn't a narrow victory. It was clear and decisive mandate. That means that a large portion of our community wants HB 581 in place, and it is your duty as public servants to respect that decision. Opting out would send the wrong message. It would tell the people of Snellville that their votes don't count when it's inconvenient. It would signal that elected officials can override the will of the people on a whim. That is not how democracy should work. I understand that keeping HB 581 in place may make your jobs more comfortable or make it more difficult. Leadership often requires tough choices in navigating complex policies. But that's what public service is about. As you're all aware, I sat in that seat for 6 years. It's tough. It's tough, and they've given you a bad situation. Even when it's challenging, ignoring the will of the voters because it creates obstacles for city leaders is simply wrong. The foundation of our democracy is built on the principle that a government serves the people, not the other way around. If we start disregarding the will of the voters today, where does it stop? Furthermore, HB 581 is designed to benefit our community. The voters who supported it saw value in what it offers, whether it's about expanding opportunities, improving quality of life, or increasing economic potential. The majority of Snellville residents want HB 581 implemented. By opting out, we risk stalling progress and alienating the very people you were elected to represent. I urge you to reconsider the long-term implications of your decision. Do we want to be known as a city that listens to the people? Or do we want to be seen as leaders who ignore the will of the voters when it suits them? The choice is clear. The people have decided. Let's honor their vote and move forward in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Please, this is your opportunity to let us know what you think. No one else? Okay. Then I will close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. That is 6 in favor and none opposed. So what we just adjourned was our special called public hearing for the House Bill 581 tax exemption. So we'll give everybody about a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll start our regular meeting at 7:30. Thank you. And I appreciate all those that came out to the town hall meeting or to this public hearing and let us know what you thought.